everyone, welcome to our new season of Kale Furuya Uncorked with the one and only Kale Furuya.
And of course, Ariana Tsuchiya, the Gram Sam.
Hey everyone, so what are we doing today on this episode?
So, starting the season, we thought we'd revisit some of the things we've done in the past and contemporize it some, so that we have a stronger base to work from. And so the first one, as you know, we discussed is about calibrating your palate, so you better understand how your palate works. So we're going to address things like acidity, we're going to address things like body, like alcohol levels, like bitterness levels, like sweetness levels, right? And so how you experience on your palate, and then you have a stronger base to work from.
Absolutely. I would say one of the biggest questions we got from season 1, and also on a day-to-day when we're working the floors as sommeliers, is how do you actually blind taste? How do you taste wines in general? So this is going to be your very first baby step tutorial to actually introducing how do you taste? How do you perceive these different physiological elements that are happening when you taste a beverage or even food, right?
And we're going to try to keep it simple, so you can buy these things at most supermarkets, and you could do it at home yourself. You don't need an instruction, you don't need a book, and this will help you better understand where you feel acidity, where you feel bitterness, do you perceive body. Right?
Absolutely. This is going to be an easy breezy how to taste tutorial. So some of the first things you need here, we're going to be using some lemons. You can easily find that at the grocery store. We also are going to be using some of this coffee that we purchased, or you can brew your own at home. We also will be needing your choice of alcohol, specifically vodka, whatever's in your home bar will work, and a couple different types of milk. We're going to be using whole milk and almond milk. Last but not least, a couple sugar packets.
There you go. How sweet it is.
How sweet it is.
So you can see you can buy this at virtually every supermarket, and you bring this home. We're going to show you, or Ariana's going to show you, how you can use these to calibrate your palate and better understand what you like and what you don't like about wines.
Absolutely. Calibration. Let's get started. So the first element that we'll be calibrating today is going to be acidity. So we have here a handy dandy lemon, which I'm going to be starting to cut up.
Handy dandy.
Handy dandy.
Thank God you got a sharp knife.
This is not a cooking show or a cooking episode. This is Ari's just trying to get by and help Chuck cut a lemon episode. Chuck, do you want to talk about what we're going to be doing with this lemon?
So we're going to lemon, if you know, when you suck on a lemon, it's sour. Sourness is acidity. So to one of the glasses, we're going to add the lemon juice, and the other one we're not. And so then we'll ask Ariana to just try it without looking and describe where she feels the difference or how she feels the difference. So this will help you to understand where on your palate that you will feel the acidity.
Absolutely. So I've cut up 1 lemon. There are 8 wedges for you to use at your disposal.
Okay.
He also has 2 glasses of water.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and close my eyes, and you can use your lemons accordingly there, sir. So I do not know. I'll be tasting this blind. I don't know exactly how many wedges he's putting in there. I don't know which glass has more liquid lemon juice than the other. It's just going to be a blind tasting of where do I actually feel the acidity and which glass has more acidity.
Okay, let me just... Okay, I'm gonna put the 2 glasses in front of you. You don't have to look at them or anything. Just 2 glasses.
These are 2 glasses. Okay.
Okay.
Got it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start with the one on my right.
Okay.
So there's obviously a little bit of acidity there to start in terms of I'm starting to already get a little bit of saliva action for me in my mouth.
So where on the palate do you feel it?
So it's actually, my salivary glands are actually feeling right on the edges there, right in the back edges. I'm feeling my saliva start to get generated.
Right.
Oh, okay. Now that's interesting because in comparison, this one doesn't have that astringence or that, not astringency, but acidity where it's not jarring to me, which is interesting because maybe if I started this with this one, compared to a clean glass of water, a plain glass of water, this one does have almost like a little bit of lemon, but this one has a lot of tartness, sour, and that's where my saliva is really kicking in here. I don't know.
That's a really good observation. You know, so if your tongue is like the letter U, acidity is like little pins being poked in the sides of your tongue, and the stronger the pins feel, the sensation is, the higher the acidity in the wine. So you're saying the glass on the right has more pins being poked in the sides of your palate, right? So that's what acidity is. And so just so you understand what that means, you know, acidity is one of the 4 basic tastes or 5 basic tastes that your mouth experiences, if you include umami, right? So there's sourness, bitterness, sweetness, and saltiness, and the Japanese say umami. So the reason why we need to understand, in my opinion, acidity is that it really pertains to food. So think about this. Normally, when you go to a restaurant, you order a fish. Somewhere on that plate, there's a lemon, whether it's a squeeze, a wedge, or it's in the sauce. So when you squeeze the lemon over a fish, what does it do? It cuts to the fishiness, it cuts to the oiliness, it cleanses your palate between bites.
Makes it brighter.
Yes. And so that's what, if a wine has good acidity, that's how it can interact with the food. So you can see, because you get that salinity, gets your saliva going, that's the acidity that would work like a lemon with your food. So wherever you imagine using a squeeze of fresh lemon, then a wine with this kind of acidity should come to your mind quickly, right? So that's what it is. So this wine has acidity, this one has barely any acidity, right? So
absolutely. So now if I were to go and try maybe a really acidic wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc, maybe from the Loire Valley, I can notice, oh, just like how that lemon kind of gave me that little bit of saliva and that little bit of sensational kick, this is kind of what I'm seeing there as well. So it's all about calibrating here, getting the fundamentals down, and applying that elsewhere.
Understand where on the palate do you feel it? And then from there, then you can talk about it in terms of, well, is that acidity high, medium high, medium low, low? You know, and so low means smooth. And so then it can help you to understand what kind of foods to do with it, right?
Absolutely. Learning the basics here, folks. Let's get on to number 2.
Okay, Ariana, step 2. We're going to talk about bitterness. As I mentioned in the previous episode, or the previous segment, you know, we have saltiness, we have sweetness, we have bitterness, we have sourness, and umami. So we did acidity, which is sourness. Now let's check out what bitterness is. Okay, so bitterness, if your tongue is like the letter U, it's in the back. It's that astringency, it's that bitterness, it's that pucker power, you know, it makes your mouth go, you know, and
sometimes if you think a wine's really chewy, perhaps.
Yeah, so coffee has bitterness, tea has bitterness, you know, so it comes something from the plant stems and, you know, the plant cells and whatnot. So it's something that comes from vegetables that you find it more often than not. So we have 2, as you can see, 2 types of coffee here. Okay, so you choose which one you want to try, and you tell me which one you think has more bitterness and where you experience it, you know, how you experience it, you know, and then we go from there.
So for those of you who are doing this at home, basically all you would need is some double espresso, which is what I got, or just some regular plain brewed coffee. You can either have your husband make it for you at home like Michael would do, or for me, I just went over to Starbucks and scored some espresso shots and regular just hamajang coffee. So let's go ahead and see what's up. Can you go ahead and mix this up for me, Chuck? So I don't know which one is which. Okay. Okie dokie. I started with the one on the right, so now I'm gonna just try good old left. Just based off of my own husband's flavor profile, I know that he would like this because he actually enjoys bitterness. And this one for me, I'm getting that, there's like that chewiness right off the bat.
So it is bitter.
It is bitter. It is bitter. It's like if you tend to like a little bit more of a bitter cocktail, or like you like your tea black, your coffee black, this one seems to be checking those boxes.
So that's why they add cream and stuff to it. That fat makes you not notice the bitterness so much, no?
And then I'm gonna go to this one. See, now this one does have bitterness, but it's way more mellow. I don't have that effect of right after I taste, I'm like chewing on anything.
So they both have bitterness.
They both have bitterness.
You feel the one on the left has more bitterness.
Yeah, this is just like kind of, It's present, but it's not a glaring trait, I would say right now. It's smoother. I don't know if it's because I drank this one first and this one I feel tannin.
Yeah, very good. So the reason why this is important for you to understand, so if you take a piece of meat and you stick it in red wine, you marinate it overnight, what happens to the meat is it gets tenderized. So some of the chemical reactions include breaking down the proteins and the marbling in the meats. That's why they typically say red wines are red meats. And if that is true, the more marbling you see in a meat like lamb and ribeye, the more tannins you need a corresponding wine. And the less marbling you see in a meat like chicken, veal, pork, the less tannins you need a corresponding wine. So in this analogy, the less tannin wines would go more with the chicken, the pork, etc., and the more tannic wines would go with the lamb and the ribeye, the more marbled pieces of meats. So that's why it's important for you to understand, if you want to. If you don't, it's okay, but this will help you to calibrate your palate so you can understand where you feel bitterness and tannins.
I felt it right on my gum line too.
Yeah, so it's in the back, it's on the gum line, it's this pocket power, this astringency kind of thing.
Which we do see in wines, those really big, heavy Napa cabs, those are generally going to have a little bit more tannin. So now we know what tannin feels like.
And the other thing I just like to take a side note is with your generation today, the more younger
IPA drinkers.
It's right, IPA beers, which are more bitter in style, whiskeys, which are more bitter in style. So bitterness is in.
Bitterness is cool, guys, and now we know.
Go. So Ari, segment 3, we're going to talk about the body of a wine.
Absolutely. Okay? And what is body in wine?
So to me, body is the weight or the feel of the wine on your palate.
Okay.
So the more weight that you have on your palate, the higher the body, right? And so a simple exercise would be to do milks.
Absolutely. So you can go to your grocery store and buy some whole milk, or maybe some soybean or almond milk.
Or macadamia nut oil, milk is another really easy one to do.
Absolutely. So here we have some whole milk and here we have some almond milk. I'm gonna have Chuck just go ahead and give those a twirl.
Okay. That's one, and this is 2.
Okay. Okay. Tastes like milk. I do see a weightiness already. Oh yeah, so compared to this one, I would say that this one has a slightly more watery consistency to it.
Okay.
Versus this one has, I'm gonna open my eyes now. This one, I actually feel it broad across my palate. This is a little bit less viscous, I would say.
And so that's how you feel body. So using that as a premise, is your wine full-bodied, medium full, medium-bodied, medium light, light-bodied? So now again, you could use these calibrations to calibrate your palate, and you can better describe a wine.
Absolutely.
Oh, this wine is full-bodied. No, this one's light-bodied. You can tell the exact difference between the 2 wines, and you can determine whether you like it or you don't like it accordingly.
And maybe sometimes use it with your food pairings because you might not be doing a heavy, full-body type of wine for a very delicate dish because you wouldn't want it to overpower, right?
Exactly.
So this is applicable to understand the concept of texture and weight and things like that when you're actually cooking for those you love at home.
Absolutely. And easy to do.
Easy to do. Just go buy some milk.
Okay, segment 4. We're going to talk about alcohol levels, right?
So just go into your home bar and find your house vodka or, some type of potent spirit.
Well, the reason why vodka is important is because it's
Clean,
and it's neutral. It's relatively new. It's not going to affect with juniper berries or oak barrels or whatever. It's just vodka.
Just vodka. We're just adding
Okay, so close your eyes. I'm going to mix these 2.
Okay. So one of them already has the vodka in it, guys.
And one is just wine.
And one is just
So
plain
it's the same
old
wine.
red wine.
One just has some vodka added to it.
Okay. I feel like I'm playing dangerous roulette here.
That's the spirit.
Whew. I must start Asian glowing already. I'm gonna take a guess and say that this one is spiked.
So what happens is it's just the alcohol gets glaring.
So I feel heat already. When I say Asian glow, I mean like I feel a little warm, like you just took a shot, but you can actually feel it in the wine itself where it's just like coming from the back, from my throat. I feel a little bit warmer.
Yeah, and so that alcohol you know, can also be a signal for you. Maybe with cold climate, you know, when it's snowy outside, you want a wine with a little more alcohol, you know? Same time, if you're having Asian foods that have sweetness, saltiness, or spiciness, one of the components that clashes with is alcohol. So, you know, you might not want a wine with this much alcohol. You know, you probably want something 12 alcohol or 10 alcohol and less with spicy or salty food. So understanding what alcohol is or how you feel it can determine what occasion you should drink this wine.
Absolutely.
What kind of foods you might want to have with this wine, or maybe you enjoy wines with higher alcohol, it doesn't matter, but at least you understand how you perceive it.
Absolutely, and I would say for those of you who are learning this to calibrate at home, and we're used to just taking shots or just having the most alcoholic cocktail out there, this is just a second for you to pause and actually perceive, what does the alcohol really mean? Where exactly am I feeling this? It'll only help to make a better taster going forward.
There you go.
Let's go on. We're to the last element right now, so move on. We're going sweetness.
Here we go. So Ari, segment 5, the last one. Here we go.
Final segment here.
We're going to talk about sweetness. Again, sweetness is one of the 5 basic tastes that your mouth experiences whenever it's tasting anything, right? It's important for us to understand how we perceive sweetness. And so what we're going to use is this designer sugar packet. So one, they're both water, room temperature. One, we're going to add half a packet of sugar. The other one, we're going to add 2.5 packets of sugar, right?
So for those of you at home, just make sure one glass has a little bit more sugar, about maybe double the amount of sugar than the other. You can use hot water too, just to help the sugar dissolve, give it a quick swirl, right?
Yeah, there we go. So you close your eyes and here we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Okay.
You can't smell sweetness, but you can taste it. And so it should be in the front of your palate, like a glove on the tip of your tongue. That's typically where I perceive sweetness as.
So it tastes sweet, but not too sweet. And then that's candy in a glass. Okay. So I definitely think that this one was sweeter. So for me, just based off of that first little tinge of my tongue right there, I could already tell that this one had a lot more residual sugar.
It's just like a glove on the tip of your tongue.
Exactly.
It's very cloying. It's very, you know, so that's sweetness. So sweetness is a funny thing. Most people say, I don't like sweet wine. But you know what the interesting thing I find about that is, but it's okay to have a sweet tomato or a sweet pineapple. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with necessarily sweet. It's just something you may not be used to. But it can be useful on a dinner table.
Absolutely.
You know, when you have something super salty, or you have something spicy.
I don't like spicy.
Yeah, so this would be like biting into a cold apple or cold pineapple, where it counters that sensation and it cools and soothes your palate between bites, right? So that's why understanding how you perceive acidity, first of all, you can sit there and determine what kind of foods you can go with it, right? Second of all, you can say, well, I don't like sweet wines, or I like sweet wines, or you can better understand the hows and whys and choose wines for your palate better.
Absolutely. So if you're very sensitive to heat, someone like me, if there's just a little bit of heat, I might go with something like this. But if the heat starts to build and build
the dish you're talking
on the
about.
dish, you might need to get a little bit more sweetness involved for myself. And the same thing if you're really sensitive to saltiness as well.
And when you're going to find, specifically in Germany, typically in Germany, I'm not saying the rest of the world, typically what you see is when you have a wine with more sweetness in it, it's going to have lower alcohol.
Oh, that's right.
So alcohol, as we saw, is something that clashes with saltiness, spiciness, etc. So in a German Riesling, for example, you're going to have slightly more sweetness. You're also going to have lower alcohol, so it's not going to clash. It's going to complement the food.
And speaking of complementing, usually if you have a really sweet dessert too, you're going to need a little bit more sweetness in the wine or the beverage too.
Oh, so tell us a story. Come on, I want to hear this. Go ahead.
You gotta do at home. We have a great little workshop going for you here, but what you can also do is the Coke and Snickers. And that will test your perception of the sweetness in Coke, correct?
Yeah, so when you drink a Coke, it tastes sweet, right? Now, instead, you eat a Snickers bar first, and then you try a Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola tastes dry and bitter. So that always taught me that whatever you drink should be slightly sweeter than whatever it is you're eating.
Absolutely.
So that's the Coke and Snickers story that Ariana and our friend Mark Shishido made famous.
Absolutely. These are all just tools of the trade cheat codes for all the sommeliers around the world, and now for those of you at home to learn how to calibrate. Hey everyone, if you liked today's episode, make sure to like the video and click and subscribe because we have a lot of fun material coming up for you this new season.
I hope you learned something with this episode. Stay tuned for the next one.
Cheers!